Hello everyone, welcome to Durrett's Take today. There's a lot that I want to talk about and go over because I have some nice predictions for y'all. So with everything that's been happening recently, while I'm still not 100% sure, I'm getting more and more confident by the day that we can hopefully have a college football season done on time, or at least start on time, for that matter. So now that that is the case, I'm going to start to make a lot of college football predictions because I love to do that. But my predictions aren't going to be exactly predictions for this season. It's going to be more like for fun or hypothetical predictions. But as I mentioned earlier a couple days ago, that the college football's president Mark Emmons may be considering having the season end earlier rather than later. So if that's going to be the case, they won't be able to have all those bowl games most likely. So in my mind, it's like it's like you should try something out new, and trying something out new can be just having 7-win teams or above, or 8-win teams or above only get it, or just maybe you only have a New Year's Six and championship. I hope that's not the case though, because I'd see a little more teams in it. But if that's the case, I understand under the circumstances. But back then, I mean, there used to only be so many full games before eventually more and more came out. So, I mean, we're spoiled and used to this, but I mean, if we only have like, let's say 20 bowl games or something like that instead, like that can be fine. But anyways, but instead of having just some bowl games, I was thinking, why not try something out new and do a bracket style like March Madness does for college basketball? Again, it'll take up some weeks, but if you can maybe cut the season a little bit short and then like have game and then Saturday season maybe ends in November, then you could do all this throughout November and somewhat December, then bam, it can end earlier or something like that. But anyway, so some because like instead of all those bowl games with like 6-6 teams like Ohio and Akron, it's just like that doesn't really matter. But I was thinking you could have it, and they can do an experiment with maybe an 8-team format, or they can go 12 or 16 because 16 is normal for one bracket. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do two brackets, so I'm gonna do the top 32 teams because I feel like there could be potential upsets there. So let's get started. So for my 1 seeds, I would have Clemson and Ohio State. For my 2 seeds, I would have Alabama and Georgia. For my 3 seeds, I would have Oregon and Oklahoma. For my 4 seeds, I would have LSU, Auburn. For my 5 seeds, I'd have Florida and Wisconsin. For my 6 seeds, I'd have Penn State and Texas A&M. For my 7 seeds, I'd have Michigan and Minnesota. For my 8 seeds, I would have Notre Dame and Utah. For my 9 seeds, I would have Iowa and Oklahoma State. For my 10 seeds, I would have Texas and North Carolina. For my 11 seeds, I would have Air Force as the highest rated group of 5, and USC. For my 12 seeds, I'd have Virginia Tech and Virginia. For my 13 seeds, I'd have Nebraska and Indiana. For my 14 seeds, I'd have Washington and Louisville. And then there starts to get a difference here, because like in my mind, a 9-3 group of 5 team, 8-4 Power 5 team, I feel like 8-4 can be there. But if it's a 7-5 Power 5 team and like a 9 or 10 win group of 5 team, then they're kind of basically even out, slightly favored towards the group of 5. So 15 seeds, I have Boise State, and then BYU, and then 16 seeds, I have UCF and Cincinnati. So that would be my top 30 teams. And then the first 4 out would be Navy, Memphis, and then you get some 7-5 Power 5 teams like Ole Miss and Kentucky. And then next 4 out would be Kansas State, Arizona State, Oregon State, and Florida State. But let's get started. So I would have in bracket 1, you have 1 Clemson versus 16 UCF. I would have Clemson win this one pretty easily, 45-10, because I feel like even if UCF can score some offensively, their defense will be no match for Clemson. And then 8 Notre Dame versus 9 Iowa. Now this one would be a very interesting game. I feel like it'd be pretty low scoring, but because Notre Dame has a really good top 5 quarterback in my opinion, college football, and Ian Bush, and Iowa is going to have a new quarterback. And even if their defense is elite, I mean, I feel like if they don't put up enough points against a pretty solid Notre Dame defense, that they won't do much. So that's why I have Notre Dame winning 24-13. And then 5 Florida versus 12 Virginia Tech. I feel like this would be the type of game where it's close in the first half, and the second half Florida starts to pull away, or the fourth quarter Florida starts to pull away. So I have Florida win 38-20. 4 seed LSU versus 13 seed Nebraska. Now this one would be a little bit closer because again LSU is not going to be scoring, 40 points a game with Joe Burrow gone and their coordinator gone and stuff like that. But they're going to still be a relevant team, just not as high as offense scoring as they usually are. They're going to go back to kind of normal with maybe they average 17, 20 points a game type of thing. But Nebraska, I feel like, will be improved, but I feel like their defense still be no match for LSU. So I have LSU winning 28-16. And then 6th seed Penn State versus 11th seed Air Force. I feel like this would be a closer game than most people think, especially since I have Air Force pretty high for this season. Like one of those group of 5 teams is like 12-1 type of thing. Like they're going to be really good. But I feel like Penn State will win 35-27, so within a touchdown. And then you have 3 Oregon versus 14 Louisville. This one, again, I feel like would be a close game in the first half, but in the second half, Oregon will start to pull away. So I have Oregon winning 38-17. And then you have 17 Michigan versus 10 seed Texas. Now this one, for me, will be like a coin toss. I'm going to go with Texas, though, because Michigan will be having a newer quarterback. And while Michigan's defense may be good, and they may have a better head coach, I feel like Texas and their senior leadership, I feel like Texas can get the job done. So then I have Texas winning 24-23 barely, like on a winning field goal. And then you have 2 seed Alabama versus 15 seed Boise State. Now this is a game where I feel like it could be close in the first half, but then Alabama would just run away with the second half. So I have Alabama winning 35-14. In brackets, you have 1 seed Ohio State versus 16 Cincinnati. Ohio State wins one easily, 41-13. 8 seed Utah versus 9 seed Oklahoma State. I feel like Oklahoma State will be more equipped and have better players to win this game. So I feel like Oklahoma State will win this one by a touchdown, 31-24. 5 seed Wisconsin versus 12 seed Virginia. Now this would be Texas and Michigan. Texas is a 10 seed, so it's an upset when they upset 7 seed Michigan, but they're kind of close together, so I wouldn't consider too much of an upset. But this one, I got my first pretty big upset. I would have Virginia upsetting 5 seed Wisconsin, because Wisconsin is the type of team that's going to run and pound the ball and not do a lot. Well, Bronco Mendenhall and that defense, they can easily stop the run. The way you beat Virginia is by passing the ball, so it all depends on who's their quarterback, who's going to be passive. If he's kind of right or not that good, then Virginia can take advantage and they can win. Now, Virginia's got their own quarterback issues, but I feel like they can resolve that. So then you have 4 seed Auburn versus 13 seed Indiana. This is a game where I feel like, again, it's going to be close in the first half, but then Auburn wins away within the second half, so I have them winning 34-17. 6 seed Texas A&M versus 11 seed USC. Now, this one would be a very offensive game and a very fun one to watch. This would be pretty interesting. About to have A&M surviving 38-31. 3rd seed Oklahoma versus 14 seed Washington. Now this one would be close in the first half, but then Oklahoma will get a couple plays and kind of pull away in the second half. So I have them winning 38-20. 7th seed Minnesota versus 10 seed North Carolina. Now here's another upset. North Carolina beating Minnesota like on a winning field goal, 34-31, barely. And then I have 2 seed Georgia versus 15 seed BYU. And this one is the biggest. I would have BYU actually upsetting Georgia to go to Sweet 16. Now here's why. While Georgia's going to have Jake Newman's pretty good and stuff. I mean, he's not unbeatable per se. Like while Georgia's defense will be super good once again, I feel like Georgia's offense still going to be kind of ass. So as long as BYU can just stop the run and make Jamie Newman beat them, I feel like they can have some success. I feel like BYU would win like on a winning field goal 17-16 in a low-scoring game. So now with the Sweet 16, let's go back to bracket number 1. I'd have 1 Clemson versus 8 Notre Dame. This one I have it being close for Alp, and then Clemson like potentially gets like a pick 6 or scoop and score or something to make it look like not as close, but they won 28-14. And they have 4 LSU versus 5 Florida. I can't remember if I have LSU beating them in the regular season, but if they do, I have Florida winning this one. I feel like Florida's offense is better equipped to go farther, and defense as well. They're a good defense team, but like I have Florida winning 31-20. And then 3rd seed Oregon versus 6th seed Penn State. This one's a toss-up for me. This one will be pretty close either way, but I'd have Oregon barely hanging on 28-27. 2 seed Alabama versus 10 seed Texas. Now this one would be a close one in the first half, and then Alabama again will get some few plays and get up ahead and win 34-17. And then bracket 2, you have 1 Ohio State versus 9 Oklahoma State. Again, this one would be close in the first half, but then Ohio State will run away with the second half, win 38-24. 4 Auburn versus 12 Virginia. Again, another close first half game, and maybe third quarter game in the fourth quarter. Auburn will start to pull away and they'll win 34-19. 3rd seed Oklahoma versus 6th seed Texas A&M. Now here's another big upset. A&M with the upset, like winning field goal, 34-31 in a high-scoring game. That would be another pretty fun one to watch. And then 10 North Carolina versus 15 BYU, and this one out of BYU getting another upset, 27-24. I feel like BYU can match up pretty good with North Carolina. So I have them advance into the Elite Eight. So then bracket one in the Elite Eight, you have Clemson versus Florida, and here's a big upset out of Florida upsetting Clemson. Normally I would have Clemson advancing out, but Florida I feel like would be actually a pretty tough mismatch for them because Florida, in my opinion, it has a good coach and a good team, and while Clemson does as well, I feel like again going back what I said a week or two ago with Clemson's best wide receiver going to be, I feel like, again, that will haunt them at some point. I don't know when, but I feel like it will come back to haunt them eventually. So I feel like in this game, will come back to haunt them. So I have Florida winning. And then you have 2 Alabama versus 3 Oregon. I have this being a close game in the first half, maybe third quarter, but then fourth quarter, Alabama start to pull away and I have them winning 34-21. So then bracket 2, I have 1 Ohio State versus 4 Auburn. This one will be a close game throughout, but I have Ohio State surviving with their quarterback 28-24. And then 6 Texas A&M versus 15 BYU. Now this game I have still being pretty close, but BYU's magical run will finally come to an end, and I have Texas A&M winning by a touchdown, 31-23. So then you have the Final Four. So then you have 2 seed Alabama versus 5th seed Florida, and this one will be a very close game. It will come down to within a touchdown, but I'm going to have Alabama survive here, 27-20. And they have 1 Ohio State versus 6 Texas A&M. So this one I would have close in the first half, and Ohio State starts to pull away second half. So I've been winning 37-24. So then you have a championship of Ohio State versus Alabama, which I feel like will be pretty fun to watch. And I have Ohio State winning on a winning field goal 30-27. So in the end, if this was just a 4-team playoff, I would have Ohio State versus Alabama in a semifinal matchup, so a championship matchup. So that's a little bit different, but not too much different. I mean, you'd have Clemson there, but you'd have you'd have at least 2 SEC teams in there. But this scenario, I'd have 3 make it. No surprise there. But also it'd be very different because there's a bunch of upsets, like North Carolina and both 10 seeds, North Carolina, Texas, upsetting their 7 seeds, or BYU going on a 2-game run, or Texas A&M as a 6 seed going to a Final Four. Same with Florida as a 5 seed. So it'd be a bunch of nice, interesting upsets, and it'd be pretty cool. So instead of having bowls and 6 teams, make it like have this type of format and see if it goes well. If it doesn't, and then the next season when things go back to normal, you can have bowl games and stuff like that, like everything normal. But if it does go well, then that's something you can maybe consider in the future. Now, again, 64 teams, in my opinion, is too much, and I just don't feel like that would work. You have to cut the season very short. So I feel like 64 teams would never work in college football like it can in college basketball. And I feel like 32 teams might be stretching. It might have to be 16 teams in order for it to kind of look at least similar to college basketball. But again, I feel like 30 teams can be worth a shot. But again, I feel like it's a fun format and something they should consider. And I don't believe they will, but again, you never know. So that's my show for y'all today. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening. Please leave comments and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much, and y'all have a wonderful day.